Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order for January 11th. To get started tonight in our first meeting of 2021, I wanted to wish everybody a happy new year and share with you how proud I am to represent Simsbury with each of you. Our Board of Selectmen is comprised of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans, and we come together to represent Simsbury out of a shared love for our town. Sean Askham, Mike Payne, Chris Peterson, Jackie Vados, Wendy Maxdudis, I consider each of you a friend, and I appreciate your public service and all the ways that you support our town. Let us now pledge allegiance to our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We begin with public audience, and in this virtual world we're in, there's 2 ways to participate. People can join our meeting. You can reach out to Tom Fitzgerald in advance. His email is tfitzgerald@sinsbury-ct.gov, or you can send us an email to Erica Butler, ebutler@sinsbury-ct.gov. And we've got 2 emails that I'm going to read. The first is from Rick Brush. Good evening, Board of Selectmen and Town Manager Capriola. My name is Rick Brush, and I've been a Simsbury resident since 2002, along with my wife and 2 children who both attended Simsbury schools. I'm writing tonight to offer my appreciation, support, and encouragement of the town's ongoing efforts to make Simsbury a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. Simsbury has made a significant and public commitment to enhance diversity and inclusion, and to ensure fair, just, and equitable opportunities for all who call Simsbury home. This includes the September 2020 resolution declaring racism a public health crisis, the designation of the Spirit Council as a formal town committee, the creation of the Equity Council focused on our schools, and the town manager's review of town policies with an equity lens. Meaningful and measurable progress will take ongoing and coordinated efforts, greater engagement of community members, and data systems to track and communicate improvements. In addition to serving as a member of the Simsbury Spirit Council, I will continue to volunteer my professional experience and expertise in this field. I lead a national nonprofit called Wellville that's helping 5 U.S. communities to improve equitable well-being. We've learned that the most successful communities are those that set clear goals, dedicate resources to data and measurement, and support ongoing engagement and collaboration. I thank you for your commitment, and I urge you to support the Spirit Council requests for data and public awareness funding. We all benefit from an inclusive and equitable community. The social and economic case for this is clear. As stated in the September resolution, the collective prosperity and well-being of the town depends on it. Sincerely, Rick Brush. The next email we received is from Joan Coe. Tonight, I'll be reporting on my findings of the Simsbury Police Department internal investigation, report dated July 11th, 2018, of a vandalized police officer's footlocker. The investigation was conducted by Lieutenant Sifo. According to the report, someone had dumped the entire contents of the locker room garbage can into the footlocker. Most of the garbage was crumpled up paper towels. While cleaning the garbage out, he discovered that there was also used tobacco and tobacco spit that was put inside his duty boots. The replacement value of the boots was $127.61. All of the officers in this investigation were given the Garrity warning that states a false statement is a Class A misdemeanor of up to 1 year in jail and or a $1,000 fine and not more than 3 years probation. There were many redactions on the reports, but it appears that Sergeant Thibault's name was redacted almost consistently. Several reports comment on Sergeant Thibault's face turning red when there was any mention of the footlocker vandalization. Sergeant Thibault's interview had several inconsistencies in his testimony. Rumor has it that the police officers know who the officer is who vandalized the locker. On background, Sergeant Thibault is the police union vice president. It's alleged that Sergeant Thibault is a boyhood friend of Lieutenant Sifo. Sergeant Thibault was shift supervisor during the Karen Graham investigation of the home where Graham committed suicide. The Gary Gray report stated, I went down the stairs and unlocked the front door and let Sergeant Thibault inside. Sergeant Thibault was union vice president during the no confidence vote. Sergeant Thibault is on the list for promotion to lieutenant. Sergeant Corcoran was interviewed by Lieutenant Sifo. Sergeant Corcoran's report states, I've overheard or personally had conversations with every patrol sergeant about the incident, including you, Lieutenant Sifo, and Lieutenant Sheehan. The only sergeant who has not said anything in regards to this incident, even when the conversation had been had in his presence, was redacted. They were involved or had any knowledge of who was involved. I also know that Kritz was tasked by the chief to ask people if they were involved or if had any knowledge of who was involved. Kritz said that everyone he spoke to was cooperative and denied involvement of who was involved. Kritz said that everyone he spoke to was cooperative and denied involvement except for redacted. Kritz said that redacted instantly turned red in the face, used profanities, and stormed out of the room. Again, we're all trained observers in this profession, and redacted's reaction was not of someone who's innocent. It is also not a secret that redacted does not like most of the officers on C Squad because of their outgoing opinions on union issues. An unredacted section of Sergeant Kritz's report states, I spoke to Dan first. When I told him what I had been asked to do, he got red in the face and agitated but did not yell. He was upset that I would even think that he would have anything to do with the garbage incident and denied having anything to do with it. I then spoke to you, Lieutenant Sifo, and the chief and gave you an update. Sergeant Thibault's first name is Dan. The conclusion of Lieutenant Sifo's investigation states, I'm unable to show who dumped the garbage in the footlocker. There's no evidence which would identify the responsible person. All of the officers who were told if the person responsible is identified and are one of the officers whom gave me a statement, I would recommend termination for lying to me. All of the interviewed officers told me that they understood and still signed and swore in a statement. The question remains that anyone reading this report would be able to find the responsible party. Someone lied. Chief Bolter stated under oath that lying is grounds for termination. Does Chief Bolter have selective enforcement? Are some officers given a pass? As the personnel director of the town, I'm asking Town Manager Maria Capriola to review the file and have an independent investigator review the footlocker investigation and find the responsible party. Recently, I observed that Liberty Bank had a sign at the entrance to Simsbury Meadows that was clearly an advertisement. I was told by the town manager's office the Performing Arts Center manages the signage at that property, and this, of course, subject to zoning regulations. Signs at the PAC are limited to advertising only for events at the PAC. My understanding is that since the sign you referenced was not connected to an event, it was removed once we notified the PAC of the issue. What was the arrangement between the PAC and Liberty Bank to advertise on town property? All of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch, Twitter @JoanCo, and Facebook. Lastly, before we conclude public audience, I just wanted to see if we had any guests on the phone who were going to join us in the Zoom meeting. No? Okay. That's public audience, and we move on to our first and only presentation, and we have the Spirit Council with us. Just by way of very brief background, last fall, the Board of Selectmen created the Spirit Council, which is a group of Simsbury residents and community stakeholders who serve as our champions of diversity. And in acknowledgement of the importance of their work, I ask that they come to our meeting every 3 months, 4 times a year, to provide an update to us and to the community. Their chairs are Cheryl Cook, Nicole Kodak, and Tanisha Grant, and their work is supported by Kristen Formanek, Director of Community and Social Services. So I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
I think Kristen was going to start us off.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
There she
Hi, Kristen.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you and provide you with an update on the wonderful work that Spirit Council has been doing. I feel like now more than ever, it's really timely that they're here before you. And we have a nice slide presentation for you tonight, and presenting will be our co-chairs, Cheryl Cook and Nicole Kodak, and also our vice chair, Tanisha Grant. I'll be here to help and to answer any questions that you might have, but I really want to have the spotlight on them, so I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl.
Thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for having us here. I appreciate your commitment to this cause. Tonight, we are going to start with just brief overviews with what each of our subcommittees is doing, and we're going to start with Nicole doing events.
Yes. So if you go ahead 2 slides, before we start, I did want to just let you know that we are obviously in touch with other towns doing this kind of work around the country, and we found several we've been in touch with: Decatur, Georgia, Montgomery, Ohio, Spartanburg, South Carolina, really was brought to our attention by Rick Brush. Marion, Iowa for their survey. We've also found a number in Connecticut that are trying to or have started doing this work. And Tanisha will talk about specifically relative to data. It seems to be one of the places people are looking to invest first, both in Glastonbury and South Windsor. But one thing that we've noticed is that we seem to be the only town that has 2 dedicated groups to this work, one for the school district and one for the town. And in many ways, we're finding that we're actually at the forefront of, in our region, what this work is looking like. So we're looking outward as well as inward. We just wanted you to be aware of that. So the next slide is our events subcommittee update, as well as data and outreach. The events update that I have is that we've been doing our monthly Let's Talk series through the library. And we just had last Thursday, our one on human trafficking, which was very powerful. And it's amazing how many experts are willing to come and participate as panelists in this type of discussion. This was a premier panel. It was very humbling to be in the company of people that work on this kind of stuff on the front line every day. We typically have about 30 people that will come to each of these events. So our next one is on Black History Month in February, and we were planning, it's February 4th, the first Thursday of the month. We were planning on specifically delving into not just Black History Month in general, but affordable housing discussions, which is a hot topic and something of interest and does have roots in the history of segregation. So we are hoping, we've invited Susan Eaton, who's published the report, what is it, Cheryl, something habit?
De-designing segregation and the habit. Oh, now you're really putting me on the spot.
I'm sorry. It's the something habit of segregation.
Yes.
And Sean and Eric, we are hoping to invite you and include you as well to have an expert present on the history of how we got here, and then just to have an open roundtable on where we are in Simsbury and what we're doing about that issue. We know the Planning Commission has done an affordable housing plan report, and we're really looking in the Let's Talk events to expand beyond the people that are already engaged in this work and frequently participating in our discussions to more well-rounded, outside the box people who have differing points of view. That's where the work starts, and so that's our focus going forward for the Simsbury Let's Talk things. So that's really our update on where we are with the events. Then I'll turn it over to Cheryl for an update on our outreach.
Thank you. We feel there's a small outreach committee, but we are very determined to make Spirit Council's presence more well-known, not only among the residents of Simsbury, but also among our boards and commission members and our business partners. So what we have done is asked our commission members to attend meetings of other boards and commissions. They will be our representatives at those meetings, and they report back to the Spirit Council. We have asked proactively for our members to introduce themselves to the commission chairs. We're trying to dispel any confusion as to why we are there. We really just want to participate and be there in case there's a question or there's something that we could be asked to participate in. It's nothing more than that. So we have drafted a letter to introduce ourselves to the boards and commissions, and that should be going out very soon. We have connected with the Simsbury Chamber, Simsbury Main Street. Both the Republican and Democratic town committees have asked us to come and present to their organizations, which we have agreed to do, and we are very happy to do so. Part of the reason for that is to encourage more diverse representation from both of the town committees, because we feel like that's a way to have other voices heard that may not get heard within the normal structure of political parties. So we just want to make sure that everybody knows who we are, what we're doing, and what we're trying to accomplish. Along those lines, we have also reached out preliminarily, but not in a formal way, to the Economic Development Commission. We do have one of our members assigned to that commission, but we are hoping with your help, because I know many of you are very involved in that commission, to take a slightly more active role than perhaps in the other boards and commissions. We would like to come in and do a presentation with the aim of seeing what we could do to help as a group, with some of the support that we have within our group, to attract diverse businesses and to welcome residents to town, and to generally make Simsbury the most welcoming town that we can be. So that is a commission we are particularly interested in being more involved in. We are also hoping that we can partner with them in our desire to collect data and engage in work with other towns with regard to outreach endeavors. So that's really where we are. We are stepping out, with both feet, and we have a lot of plans, but we are really trying to engage people at home first, and that is our quest right now. And part of what we're asking you to help us with is really getting the word out, a public engagement, to let people know why we're doing this, why we think it's important, and why we want everybody to participate. So I'm going to turn it over to Tanisha, who's going to talk more specifically about what the data subcommittee is doing.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thanks for having us here today. So the data subcommittee met on the 28th of December, and just wanted to do an update on where we were with things in light of us being made a formal committee in the middle of a budget cycle. And what we just, Sean also was at that meeting as well. And so as a result of that meeting, we decided that it would be best for us to see what other towns were doing locally, instead of just like what was going on outside of Connecticut. So just to find out what other towns were doing or have done since they adopted the resolution. And what I found out when doing research with the other towns was, like Nicole has said, that we are a well advanced or more far ahead of many towns in doing this. Glastonbury right now is interviewing 2 consultants to come out and do their data work for them. They're looking to spend between $25,000 to $30,000 for their consultant to come and do some work for them. This same consultant that they're using, or the same structure that they're using, is what they use for their Aging and Disability Commission when they did a town-wide survey for that. And so we're looking to do something similar, but we can't wait until the fiscal year 22 to be able to actually start this. So we need some seed funding to be able to get the work started for the initial first steps of the data work. And if we don't have that, we're just pretty much stuck until the budget is passed and approved. But it's interesting that South Windsor, they have a Black Lives Matter committee They have devoted some money specifically to that committee to get the work started for that town. Not a specific dollar amount that I have offhand for that, but they did release some money for them to be able to do that, and they're in the process now of making it a formal town committee. It isn't a town committee at this point in time, but once they finish working on all of their goals that they have in the resolution, they're going to become a town committee after that. And let's see, I think that's pretty much about it with regards to the data work. But it's a lot of stuff that we're looking for a consultant to be able to help us to figure out what it is that we don't know in terms of what we need to collect, what type of data we need to collect, how can we make progress on the data that we did collect based on whatever the results were. So that's why we are in need for that. And I'm not sure if I left anything out, Nicole and Cheryl, please.
Just the next slide are the talking points about what we were looking for with data. You know, you guys made it a top priority. You made us a town committee. We've have a resolution that you've endorsed and resolved and formalized. And so, we're just looking for the data expert to look at what to measure, quantitative, qualitative stuff. Where do we access existing resources? What new resources? And we want to have baselines and targets for something that's repeatable and not just a quick and dirty, let's do something now and then we're going to do something different in a year. So you can't really compare the apple to the orange. So we're trying to be thoughtful and planful and efficient, both with time and money and effort. And then just the public awareness goal of our work is to engage you and to make a stance publicly. And this is what our town is doing. This is what we stand for. This is, diversity, equity, and inclusion are things that we are supporting. And so just communicating that Simsbury is a place to come, and new businesses and welcoming residents and employees and retaining them is something that we want to support. Anything else, Cheryl and Tanisha, on that part before we go to our final slide?
I don't think so. I think that sums it up. So, in the spirit, pun intended, of our partnership, and we consider all of you our partners in this because, as Nicole said, we have been grateful for your support, and now it's time, to get some real work done. So we would like to first thank you. I'd like to thank the town manager's office for providing us with the town employee demographic data. It was great, a great data set to help us get started. We have requested the same from the Board of Ed. As Nicole said, we are really getting a baseline because, we don't know if it's working if we don't know where we started. So this is what we need to do. And since we are a partnership, we are hoping that you will turn to us as we will turn to you for advice, for how we move forward. And at our last meeting together, you talked about updating the town's policies and procedures through a review process. So we would love to know how that's going, and how can we support that? Is there anything that we can do to help move this process along? We are thankful that you are entertaining our request for seed money. We think the work is urgent and that the need is urgent, and we think that it's important that the residents of Simsbury feel like the work is getting done. As Nicole said, we have no interest in a show and a pretty picture. We actually want to get, some numbers going and feet on the ground. So that's why we're here. Our next update to you is scheduled for April 26th, but we are all here to answer your questions and have a conversation if you so desire.
Thank you. This is excellent, excellent work, all of you. When are we going to learn more about that budget request more specifically?
The budget request will come through the Department of Community and Social Services. So I think I will let Kristen answer that question.
Hi, yes. So we have put forward the budget request in my budget as a service improvement, and that has been forwarded to the finance office and the town manager's office. So we're going to move forward with that through the budget process. And then it's also my understanding that we might put forward a request for a supplemental appropriation for this year, as Cheryl had mentioned, so that we could get some seed money for the group and get started on the data collection. So I think you'll see some more information coming from us.
Thank you, Kristen. What questions do members of the board have?
This is Sean. So I could just build upon that, Sherry and Nicole and Tanisha. Thank you so much for being here and including me in your prior meetings. The suggestion was made to go with the supplemental, and I believe these folks are working on what that scope of work might look like. But the intent tonight was just to get us aware of that. We're not talking about a lot of dollars here. Probably something under 5,000, I think is where we're coming in. Mm-hmm. So nobody should be concerned about sticker shock, but often we have some flexibility within the current year budget, as accounts come in higher or lower, to see if we can get something off the ground. And while we always love to do stuff, obviously during the budget cycle, given our commitment that we made in the fall and the work that these folks are doing, it became very apparent very quickly that this would benefit their efforts if we could find a way to get them off the ground. So these guys are putting together what that'll look like. They're not asking for a blank check. There'll be a scope of work with it. There'll be a formal request, and I think next meeting perhaps, mm-hmm. or in the first meeting in February. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, I don't know if it's possible, but if we could have them come in as part of the budget process to talk more about their request, because it is a service improvement and I don't want to get ahead or get in the way of the town manager's budget. But again, given our commitment that we made in the proclamation that we declared, I think it's important that one, we help educate the community on the needs and priorities of what these folks are doing. And then two, have an honest discussion about whether we can fund it or not. It's no secret to anybody on this call how hard we work to spend $10,000 and how painstaking that process is. But I think it's important that we have a full review of that. So that's kind of where we are from the financial picture. And I do encourage folks to keep an open mind for that budget request. I have seen it when it came in to Kristen, and at first blush, you might think it's a marketing proposal or otherwise. And I want to reemphasize what Sherry and Tanisha and Nicole said. It's so much is critical, as I've heard from these folks and the experts, on getting the conversation started, that if we're going to be serious about improvement of equality and diversity issues in Simsbury, we need to have competing viewpoints come in and be honest with us. We need to have not arguments, but challenging conversations, I believe is what I learned from the last meeting. And it makes a lot of sense when you hear it in that context. Because if everybody sits around and says, yeah, we're going to do this and it's great, are we moving the needle, the rock forward? No, we have to have those awkward, hard conversations to make a difference. So this is a little bit different than I think what we're used to in terms of budgetary requests or strategies. We're used to the buttoned up, hey, we're going to put a sign here and we're going to grow the tax base by 2%. We're going to do that. So at least for some of us, that might be a different mindset to think about. But one that's very interesting, and again, I'll shut up in a second here, but I was thoroughly impressed with the organization that you folks have, your subcommittees, the passion, but also the expertise that you brought in. You've clearly brought in subject matter experts in their space, whether it be data or public education or different arenas that certainly seem to benefit your committee. So I'm very excited by what I've heard so far. And again, nothing else, we're having, I think, good conversations here that this community needs to have. So thank you guys for your work.
Thank you. Great context, Sean. Wendy.
Yeah, so I just have a, regarding the data collection, and could somebody give me an example of what kind of data we're looking for and, how we would use it?
Sure. Nicole, do you want to take that one?
Sure. a lot of our learning on specific data has come from looking at through Rick Brush's expertise, really, who does this work through Wellville. But Data Haven has a community well-being index, but we don't have enough responses from Simsbury to disaggregate and look at what's happening within marginalized groups, because our population of people that are not Caucasian is so low. So we would need to really either overrepresent in a sample the voices to really understand and tease out the differences and how people are really feeling about their quality of life here. Are they welcome? Do they feel like their needs are being met? Or does the town support them? What about the ability to have a business here, that kind of thing? So the qualitative part would also be, how do we reach and engage with people that either don't agree with our work, that are part of our community, or that feel underserved, that are part of our community already. So it's a fair amount of work to get to the meaningful measures of not only how people are feeling in terms of access to healthcare, jobs, even people we've heard in discussions in our Let's Talk group about getting groceries in our Hispanic Heritage one. Some of the participants came on just to meet other people who were from Puerto Rico in our town, to try to get together at the library and connect with people like them in their culture. And the libraries are gold in service and support right now. In addition to you guys, they're really making a lot of our work happen, and they're excellent at it. But data-wise, it's they were saying even going to the grocery store and finding their food marginalized in an international aisle and only having a third of what they're looking for example. There's things like that affect all the parts of being a resident of Simsbury that we can measure and track in a methodical way, that you really have to be thoughtful about. We can't just like put an email survey out and expect the responses that we really need to engage at this point. So does that give a feel for the kind of work that we're starting?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Wendy, I think in our last presentation, and I would have to go back and look at it, and you might be able to find it before I do, but we had some sample questions from Marion, Iowa. Just to give a brief overview, what we found is like what Nicole said. When we started to ask the questions back at the community forum last year, when we had the 100 people come in and everybody had some very frank conversations, was many people felt like things that had happened to them, had never happened to any of us. And they needed to tell that story. They need to say what it feels like, to walk into a store and not be looked at or accepted like everybody else is. To go in the grocery store and have certain assumptions made about what it is you want. So a lot of that, it sounds very esoteric, but it's very real to the people who live here now and the people who we would like to welcome to this town in the future.
This is a great explanation. Thank you. What other questions?
I was just going to say, Sherry, to put an exclamation point on what you just said, I think that's the benefit right there for the community of making sure that the people that are here are part of our community, because they are and should be. And again, are we missing out on other great residents that either don't include us in their house search list, don't know about us, don't want to, and that's a shame. Are we losing talent? Are we losing contributors to our community from a business standpoint, from an education standpoint, from a you name it standpoint? So, when I first sat down, I was like, all right, what are we talking about from a benefit standpoint? What are we going to measure? But as my friend Chris Kelly has educated me on for a long time, we've always got to have a baseline to know, have we made any progress? Or heaven forbid, have we slipped? So, for folks that might, why are we spending money on data again? Well, if we're serious about this, then we ought to be able to understand, have we moved the rock forward an inch, a mile, and what does that take? And I think these folks, again, I don't want to steal the thunder, but will inform us more so on the process along the way of how do we continue to engage here, so that this is not a flash in the pan and 2 years from now we've got another subcommittee and we've moved on to another proclamation. This that this survives our board and current community members or committee members, so that it's something that becomes ingrained in our community. No different than zoning, no different than the Board of Finance, no different than other volunteer boards and commissions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd like to see how we can get you the seed money in the most expedient way so that we can keep the momentum going.
Honestly, even I'm just going to be very frank here, $3,000 would get us started. I mean, we're not asking for the world here. We have asked some data providers, what the whole cost is, and you will see that later. But there are pieces of that we could get started on for a relatively small amount of money. I'm not, trying to minimize the fact that, we are asking you to spend money on something that's never been asked before. But I think it's important. I think the rest of it, the public awareness part will come in time, but that is something that, we all are continuing to work on and continuing to get the word out. But we really need some hard numbers to get going.
Understood. Are there other questions from the board? Chris.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. I'm sure that I'm from Reinvent the Wheel. I'm sure you guys are some brilliant people on the Spirit Council. Have you tasked anybody potentially with elevating above into the private sector, nonprofit sector, to source some of the money and or the information and or the consulting? I can think of very few issues that are being championed more loudly in our country right now than many of the issues you folks are taking. And I can only imagine the amount of philanthropic dollars that are out there with different organizations. So that takes horsepower and leadership by somebody, which is never easy because we all have competing other priorities in our life. Right. But so I wonder if there's some money someplace to also speak to and assist.
We are totally open to that. We have already started conversations with the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. So, as Nicole said, part of our challenge is that we are a small data set. So asking large, organizations to give us information has come back with numbers for all of Connecticut or all of, which isn't particularly helpful for what we need right now. We have a small group and we need to really focus deep down on the people that are here. So while we are looking into that and we are exploring all ways possible to get the data for nothing, we still have our Department of Justice partner who is trying to help us because they are a government entity. They aren't allowed to recommend any particular, private provider, but they are certainly giving us some guidance. We have explored using survey tools already available to the town. The problem there is that we need to develop the questions, and those questions have to be carefully thought out and intentional. So that's where we need the help. I mean, we are certainly with you on that. We are open to all options.
Yeah, I think in my small mind, I'm thinking of something, Sarah, that's an organization that's broad and grand and all encompassing, like the TPL, for land, but who funds and looks at once a grant or once a project is put forth to them, funds and looks at the efforts at the local level. That's just kind of thing was in my head. And the second thing I just wanted to bring, when I was bringing, can you get me a power cord that works? Not you folks. Can you go find a power cord? The second thing is when I saw your presentation, and then I looked for I looked at the coming February 4th event. Then I went to the town website, to your page, and the town website, that event is not listed there on your calendar. So, and I'm just trying to stay away from social media, even though you have a great Facebook place. So I don't know, maybe somebody can help you upload or download all your events to the.
That's not it, Chris.
Page.
It's not. It's that particular event doesn't have its participants confirmed yet.
Okay.
Two of which are your fellow selectmen who we have floated.
Oh, I saw them. They're pulled in now. Now they've got to be there. Because
put my name on it.
As long as you're not calling us experts, that's fine.
Forget it. I'll wait. I'll keep looking for the update then.
But Kristen is doing a great job, making us all official. Our events get listed on the library website, for which we are very grateful. And most of our events you can register directly on the library website for our events.
I'm just trying to push people to the town website for all kinds of things, all consuming. Anytime anybody asks, I go to the town website. All the information is there. So,
Chris, I have two quick things. On the grant piece or the funding piece, we are actively applying for a grant with the library right now, but that's for $2,000 for a multicultural event festival that's been long sought after since the first May forum with the Department of Justice. That because of COVID probably cannot happen until next year, 2022, but we're still applying for that. And then marketing, we do need someone that can help with the legwork and the vision of marketing. And I don't mean marketing, that's the wrong term, public awareness and social media usage to get the word out on who we are, what we're doing, and how you can become involved. Whether or not you agree with us, we want to engage with people, including all of our former panelists from all of our monthly conversations, the Let's Talk events. We will be inviting them back to our multicultural event to participate and represent their group. So we're trying on the grant piece, and we're looking for some muscle in the publicity piece. Public engagement.
Thanks, Nicole. Other questions? Okay, well, thank you again. Excellent work. And we look forward to supporting this group to keep that momentum going. Before members of the Spirit Council sign off, we got a request from the Police Commission to see if we could move up an agenda item so that Tanisha could participate in the first Police Commission meeting. So I want to see if there would be a motion to amend the agenda to move Tanisha's appointment to next on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there a motion effective January 11th, 2021 to appoint Tanisha Grant as a regular member of the Police Commission with the term expiring on January 1, 2025?
So moved.
I'll second Wendy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Tanisha. As long as you get your conflict of interest form done online, like right now, you can participate in the Police Commission meeting.
I literally did it like a half hour before.
Excellent.
So,
All right. Well, I don't want to keep you. So thank you so much.
Bye.
We'll talk to you again in an hour, Tanisha.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We are going to move on to the first Selectmen's report. And I just wanted to begin tonight with some reflections on a painful, tragic, and extraordinary week for our country. And I recorded a video last week that I'm linking to in the report that's getting emailed out. Last night, Sunday evening, I had the opportunity to attend a virtual event that was sponsored by the Facebook group Holding the Door Open. And below is an excerpt of what I shared with that audience about how I feel the country can move forward from this deeply dangerous place of polarization right now. And I'm just going to read an excerpt from that. Our democratic institutions were set up to force dialogue and compromise. Such checks and balances are not just present at the national level, we also see them at the state and local level too. As an example, no more than 4 members of the Board of Selectmen can be from the same political party. That's true for all of our boards and commissions, and I believe that we're better off for it. However, the system stops working when leaders retreat to polarized corners. It stops working when we get into partisan echo chambers like Facebook and Twitter. I believe that the path forward is an embrace of political leaders who are willing to reach across the aisle, figure out common ground, and get to work for the American people. And I really feel like that's how our Board of Selectmen works in Simsbury. Our board, as I mentioned earlier tonight, is made up of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans. And I just want to tell you all that I respect each of you tremendously. So much so that when I was elected to my second term, I asked Sean Askham, one of my Republican colleagues, to serve as deputy. And to my knowledge, we're the only town in Connecticut where this is the case. With Sean as my deputy, I believe that we're a stronger board. It helps not only with the speed of our work, but also with the quality of our decisions. And we come together, all six of us, out of a shared love for our town. And it goes on from there. But I really wanted to share with this group how I think that what we're doing in Simsbury can be a very small microcosm for how I think our country needs to move forward. And I appreciate all of you. Update from the Spirit Council. The Spirit Council is holding its next virtual event. It's the Let's Talk series. Their next event is Thursday, February 4th at 6:30 p.m. February's event will be focused on affordable housing, and registration will be available soon on the library's website. Community for Care is hosting a virtual panel discussion highlighting the issue of domestic violence, February 10th at 6:30 p.m. Those on the panel include Simsbury's new Deputy Police Chief, Chris Davis, Tanisha Grant from the Community Renewal Team, and others. And also the registration for that event will be available on the library's website. It is sadly that time of year to box up the ornaments and vacuum up the pine needles. Paynes will be collecting Christmas trees the week of January 18th, and you can leave them on the curb on your usual trash day. All Waste will be collecting trees the following week, week of January 25th. And finally, Martin Luther King Day is recognized on January 18th. That's 1 week from today. This year, the public's invited to attend the long-awaited unveiling of the MLK in Connecticut Memorial at 12:30 p.m. And what's really special about this project is much of the research, the planning, and fundraising for this project came from Simsbury students. The memorial is a tribute to Dr. King and the time that he spent working in Simsbury as a college student. So that's my report. I'll turn it over to Maria.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to jump ahead on my report this evening because I would like to start off just sharing some thoughts and reflections that I shared with our workforce after the events that had transpired at the Capitol last Wednesday. I do have that under departmental news and notes, but thought that it might be helpful for our community to hear what I had shared with our workforce. As I watched the events unfold last week, I shared with staff how unsettling and discouraging and frankly, just how scary that was for many of us to see our democracy in such a fragile state. And I felt it was important to remind our staff of the work that we do at the local government level and how much it matters and provides a source of stability for our residents. In my opinion, working at the local government level is really special because we have the ability to impact the day-to-day lives of our residents. And on our best days, we're making somebody's day or maybe their life a little bit better and a little bit brighter. And again, I just think that's what makes our work so special. And as public servants, our work matters. And I shared a few examples with staff, and this is just a small list of the ways that we have an impact on our community. But I think that these are some good examples to show, what we're still providing to our residents during, times of crisis. And I said to them, when we're teaching a child to learn how to swim, our work matters. When we're plowing roads for 16 hours straight in a snowstorm to make sure that those roads are passable for an ambulance, our work matters. When we're helping to feed our residents who are experiencing food insecurity, to help those folks out, our work matters. When we're responding to a call for service on a resident's darkest day, the work that we do matters. When we fostered the love of reading in a child, the work we do matters. And when a senior feels a little less lonely and a little less isolated, our work matters. And so for many of us who choose this profession, our work is not just a job, but it's a passion, it's a vocation, it's really a calling. And we serve as public administrators because we want to make a difference and we want to help people, because we want to make Simsbury the best possible place for people to live, work, and play. And our work can be challenging at times. We spend many nights, weekends, and holidays away from our families. We spend long hours at work during times of crisis. And it's easy for people to criticize the work we do, but less easy to say a job well done. And so during this difficult time, I have asked staff to lean on their colleagues for support and to remember to be patient and to be kind with one another. So thank you for letting me share that this evening.
It's a great message, Maria.
Thank you. All right, and I'll jump back to our pandemic update. So our case numbers did see a bit of an uptick following the holiday, celebrations that folks had. We, for the 2-week period ending January 2nd, had an increased rate of 28.3 cases per 100,000 residents. That's up from about 23.7 cases during my last town manager's report in early December. Our positivity rate went from 4.2% during that time frame up to 5.2% most recently. And over the most recent 2-week period ending January 2nd, we had a total of 99 positive cases in the community. The health district is reporting that we are experiencing some of the highest number of new cases per week. And we expect this to continue to occur as implications of holiday gatherings and family gatherings from the holidays continue to manifest. So we have provided a reminder about some information regarding gathering sizes at this time and ask folks to be respectful of those guidelines. The health district is also sharing some information regarding the vaccines. They have received their first 300 doses of the vaccine. And an additional 300 doses arrived on December 30th. They've conducted 5 clinics this far for phase 1A eligible recipients and administered 350 doses at those clinics. Both town hall staff and health district staff are fielding many inquiries from the public about when they might be eligible for the vaccine and when they can anticipate receiving it. We have provided a link through the state's website of where folks can go for updates regarding that. There is a state advisory committee that's meeting on the 14th of this week. So we do hope that additional information about other phases will become available soon. Also wanted to just quickly update you all on the health of the organization. During the month of December, we did see some improvement compared to November. We had 3 staff members that were quarantined during the month of December for coming into close contact, whether in the work setting or in their private lives, with, again, an individual that had tested positive for COVID. And we had 3 staff members who tested positive during the month of December. You may recall November was a particularly challenging month for us, and we had a total of 19 staff members that were quarantined during November. Town Hall and the library, they both do continue to remain open to the public for limited hours. We are alternating days of the week, so Town Hall is still open for walk-in visitors Monday and Wednesday and Friday mornings. And our library is currently open Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays midday. And within the report, we have information about when we're open for service, as well as how folks can complete business online. And then just a few other quick announcements from departmental news and notes. For Culture, Parks, and Recreation, I'm very pleased to announce that Brian Johnson has been promoted to the position of our golf course superintendent. Brian has been with us since 2014, serving in the role of assistant golf course superintendent. Prior to that, he has spent many years at other golf courses in the region, serving as a superintendent. He has a degree from the University of Connecticut, and he also has a degree in turf management from the University of Massachusetts. I think he has a terrific vision for the course. I've really enjoyed working with him thus far, and just want to wish Brian all the best in his new position. And then from our planning department, another internal promotion. Tom Hazel, who was hired about a year ago as our code compliance officer, has been promoted to the position of assistant town planner. He has a bachelor's degree in natural resource management from UConn. It's been an absolute terrific addition, that skill set, to our organization. He has been helping us out tremendously with a number of our open space initiatives and our agricultural initiatives. So that's been, again, just a terrific skill set to have on hand. We're really grateful to him for that work. Previously, he worked for the town of Windsor as an environmental planner. And I'm confident that Tom is going to do very, very well in his new role. And from Public Works, Chris Roy will be retiring on February 1st after 30 years of service to the town. That's just such an accomplishment. He began his career working with the Parks Department and later transferred to the Water Pollution Control Facility. He rose to the level of Water Pollution Control Operator 3, and much of his work every day is vital to ensuring that the water leaving the treatment facility is meeting strict environmental parameters to protect the water quality of the Farmington River. So that's very important work that he's been doing for us. He's looking forward to spending more time with his wife and his granddaughters in his retirement, and we definitely want to wish him well. And then lastly, just a quick reminder that our outside agency funding requests, those grant applications, have been released. They are on our website. We've provided a link to folks. So for our nonprofit agencies in town who are serving our residents, if you would like to submit an application to us, those are due by January 25th. And if you have any questions at all about the application, folks can contact Tom Fitzgerald in my office. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Maria. We'll move on to Selectmen action. And item A, we return to the Spirit Council. Following the presentation tonight, we also received a request from them to establish a Twitter account to help promote their work. And pursuant to our social media policy, that's something that this board needs to agree to. I wanted to see if there were any questions from board members or anything that members of the Spirit Council wanted to add on this agenda item. Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion January 11th, 2021 to approve the creation of a Simsbury Spirit Council Twitter account to be used by the committee to publicize their efforts, of which town staff will have oversight?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item B. So this relates to the bike path extension along Route 315. So this is the extension that would connect Hot Meadow to Curtis Park. And staff is asking the board to approve a contract amendment extending the deadline for a key grant that's funding a significant part of this project. Maria, would you be able to elaborate on the need for the extension?
Sure. So generally contract extensions for grant amendments are fairly standard, but just to err on the side of caution, we thought it would make sense to bring these motions forward to you. The original grant was approved under the old form of government. So we thought that, again, moving forward, it would make sense just to have you all essentially authorize me to sign off on any grant documents related to this grant award. But yes, this would keep this grant money moving forward for us. And it is for the bike path extension that will go from downtown to Curtis and Patterson Parks. And then, Jeff, I'm not sure if there's anything you might like to add on that.
No, that's it. It's just that we're trying to leverage these funds. We have been drawing them down, but we haven't been able to draw them all down. So we have other grant opportunities to try to package with this grant. And the timing's actually good. We're not there yet with that second grant. So this buys us some time to get the job fully funded, hopefully by the grants, as opposed to using town money.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Other questions? Is there a motion effective January 11th, 2021 to authorize Maria Capriola, town manager, to execute the contract amendments from the State Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection for the Connecticut Trails Program grant for a multi-use trail, and also to authorize the town manager to execute any and all documents related to the grant award?
Move that. Good.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Item C is the designation of a conservation officer, inland wetlands agent. So Tom Hazel serves in our planning department, and as you heard in Maria's report, he was recently promoted to assistant town planner. And along with this promotion, staff is requesting that we designate Tom as our conservation and inland wetlands officer. Is there anything that anyone wanted to add or any questions? Is there a motion effective January 11th, 2021 to designate Thomas Hazel as the Conservation and Inland Wetlands Officer? This designation shall remain in effect until revised, rescinded, or Mr. Hazel's separation from service, whichever comes first.
I'll move that, Eric.
Okay, Mike?
Second.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item D is tax refund requests. Is there a motion effective January 11th, 2021 to approve the presented tax refunds in the amount of $79,165.14 and authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to execute the tax refund?
Move that.
Second.
There's Sean and then Wendy. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item E is the acceptance of municipal coronavirus relief funds. We recently learned that the state is going to be using a formula to distribute coronavirus relief money to towns that's based on the town's population. And Simsbury has been allocated a little over $181,000. Maria, would you be able to elaborate a little on how this money is going to be used?
Sure, I'll actually let Amy go over that with you.
Amy.
Yeah,
good to see you.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. So yeah, as you stated, we're going to get about $181,000 for COVID relief. So initially, the state had rolled out a plan where municipalities were submit from reimbursement. But unfortunately, when they did that for the fiscal year 20 process, everything went really slow. I don't know if they got complaints, but in order to get to the funding to the municipalities on a more rapid rate, they just decided to use a population formula. So the 181,000 is our allocation. They also changed the requirements for what we can use the money on. So initially, there were specific expenditures that we had to allocate the money towards. During the first round, during fiscal year 20, when municipalities were applying for the reimbursement, they actually weren't hitting the allocation that they had given. So if you recall, Simsbury was given $55,000 during fiscal year 20. And I believe we received about 40 something of it because we just didn't have the expenditures to cover. So that was the case across many municipalities. So they just decided to do the population formula. And in addition to the qualified COVID expenditures, we are also allowed to use these expenditures for public safety. So any of our police personnel costs from now until the end of December, we can allocate the funding towards. So the proposal would be to allocate the funding towards the police department salaries. And then that way for grant purposes, we're in compliance with the grant requirements. And then we use the savings from that has generated in the budget to utilize as the board see fit.
Thanks, Amy. Other questions?
So Amy, just to be clear, are we talking about the current fiscal year, or does that stretch between this fiscal and the coming?
You know, it's funny you say that because originally it was from July until the end of December. And we just received something today that Maria had forwarded me that they're extending it through the end of December of next year to be able to utilize those funds.
It's just interesting because so we would have to decide, or you would have to decide from an accounting standpoint where and how, because then we could potentially be commingling this with the budget and offsetting a normalized expenditure with the police.
Yeah, so if we just offset the police expenditures, we have the savings that we can utilize as well. So at the end of the fiscal year, if we have some savings generated, we can decide what to do with it. But as far as like the actual grant expenditures, I think we should just offset the police personnel costs. And that way for the audit, it's clean, we're in compliance, and we spent it as appropriate.
No, I agree. And so I asked the question wrong. So essentially we're counting it now against the police, the personnel expenditures. So the savings will be in this current fiscal year, and we're not stretching them out. And that's how we're doing it, right? Because what I don't want to get into is having to then account for this in the budget process. So right now we accept them, it's done. Those savings show up as part of the year-end closeout, is what you're saying, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just keeping up with it. So we're not dragging it out over 2 fiscal years and applying $100,000 now and $80,000 next year or any of that. We're just doing it all right now.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Other questions?
That's good news, though.
Yeah.
And then my only other, is it true that this is only on the town side and that there are different funds that the Board of Education may be tapping?
Yeah, so the Board of Education has actually already received their allocations. They've received 2 grant allocations in the time it's taken us to get one from fiscal year 20. So they received about $83,000 in the first round. And then actually the CARES in total, they already received about $375,000. And then actually I just got an email this evening that the state has received additional funding that they are allowed to hold aside for schools to be distributed to districts. So there could be additional funding coming their way that we have not been formally notified about yet.
Okay. So that meeting where I caused a lot of confusion. Essentially, this helps clear that up, right? Is the expenditures are coming? You're doing it this way, and we're going to deal with it at the end. And basically that's what we had agreed to a month or 2 back in terms of how to account for the COVID expenditures and when we put them in a line item or not, right? So This takes that off the table, and now we've all got clarity on it.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, other questions? All right, we'll see. The motion, is there a motion effective January 11th, 2021 to accept coronavirus relief funds from the state of Connecticut in the amount of $181,098?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
And is there any other conversation?
Just real quick, forgive me. I know it says it in the packet, but it should be stated for the record and for the public that the health districts are not receiving any funds from the state of Connecticut, which I continue to scratch my head at, and that we may be getting a request as a municipality. So before everybody has visions of where this all goes, that seems like a pretty valid place to go send it. But again, I'm confused as to why the health districts, when they're set up by the state, are not being helped out with the obvious costs there. So anyway.
Yeah, I wonder if this is going to be a topic in the Farmington Valley Collaborative meeting. I believe that's this week. It would be timely.
It would be. And again, I'm not part of that decision making, but it might be good for us all to try to be consistent with, are we going to do a demographic charge back to the health districts, or, how are we going to do that? Because I don't want to get into where Avon gives them 5 and we give them 50 in Farmington. It should be consistent and make sense to meet their needs across the scope of service if we're going to get into that. So I know a board member at this meeting, right? She over there? 2 of them? There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got the motion on the table. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. That motion carries. Item F is a proposed tax abatement agreement for 632 Hot Meadow Street. So this is Ensign Bickford, one of our town's, as we know, oldest and largest employers. They came to the town in April of 2019 with a proposal to significantly invest in their Simsbury campus, and in the process creating over 100 new jobs. In the spring of that year, the Board of Selectmen at the time asked the town manager and the town attorney to negotiate a tax abatement agreement. And that agreement is in your packets tonight. And I thought I could turn it over to either Attorney DiCrescenzo or Maria to walk us through really the highlights of where we landed with Ensign Bickford.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I'll just start off with a very brief introduction and then turn it over to Bob, because I think he really does just have a phenomenal way of describing all of this and how it all comes together. So at a staff level, with Bob, really leading the way on this for us, Francine and Amy and myself and Mike Glidden really worked to update the relevant pieces. So in terms of, what EBAD had represented in their application in May of 2019, ultimately versus what happened through their actual investment in the property. And, I think as reported in the cover memo, they really fulfilled, their promise to us in terms of the actual investments in real estate and personal property. On some things they did better, on some things they were a little shy, but overall, again, I think, represented and estimated fairly well back in spring of 2019. As Eric mentioned, although the abatement wasn't directly tied to job creation, thus far they have reported, so far they've added over 112 of the 140 positions, with many more expected by year end. And the average starting salary actually for those positions was even better than we had previously hoped. I think they had reported they thought that would be around 75,000. In fact, most of the jobs started in excess of 100,000. So very good job creation for the region. Some very, very good investment in a building that hadn't really been renovated or used since the 1970s. And again, that there was some personal property that they did add that is not exempt under the manufacturing tax exemption under statute. So very, very, again, much just want to thank Francine especially and the rest of our staff members for their hard work pulling together the analysis for you. And I think with that, I would just turn it over to Bob to kind of go through the mechanics.
Thanks, Maria. In 2019, the board really voted on a couple of things. One is a percentage reduction over a 10-year time frame, and the reduction graduated from 100% reduction down to, I think, 25%. Do you have the document that we can pull up? Maria, can you put the document on the screen?
Yeah, let me just coordinate that with Melissa.
I can do that. Just give me 1 sec.
Yeah, you're right, though, Bob. It is 100% down to the 25.
Right, and the bargain was that they would invest a certain amount in both real estate and personal property assets. And if you recall, at the time, they were choosing between Simsbury and I think it was Utah. And this was to induce them to make these investments in Simsbury rather than Utah. And the deal was, as you can see here, Francine's done a good job of breaking it down into new incremental real estate value and new incremental personal property value. And the abatement relates to the real estate tax, not the personal property tax, understanding that a great deal of the new personal property is otherwise exempt, but there is, as you can see by the chart, a great deal that is not. So in the agreement, there was two things. There was the graduated tax abatement on the real estate side, and then there was a minimum tax payment required from both real estate and personal property. And the good news is, as you can see from the chart, they have it really, in reliance on the board's promise 2 years ago that the town would enter into an agreement, they went ahead and invested both in the real estate and in the personal property. It's a little complicated because the area of the real estate investment is really a leased building between a related entity within the overall campus. And we only have one assessment card with, I think, 35 or so subcards. As you know, there's a lot of buildings out there. So it's a little bit hard to segregate the overall valuation from the incremental valuation in this one building, but Francine's done a good job with that. And if you just compare the estimated, the last column, net new growth, real estate and personal property tax, which is really the bottom line, the estimated versus the actual, you will see that they have done a good job of making good on their promise to invest. And the last column is net new real and personal property tax. And the bottom column of the two charts there, you see, that's what the board agreed to in 2019. And what we actually have is the top chart, which is based on the actuals. And since the first year is different than the first year that the board agreed to in 2019, we thought it was just a good idea to come back to this board and reaffirm and readopt this, because the only deviation is that first year. You can see it's about $10,000 less than what the estimate was, but that really has to do with the timing of when assets came onto the grand list. But the bottom line is the overall net taxes, new taxes, is increased by about, call it $67,000 over the estimate. So a couple good things going on here. A lot of times we enter into these tax agreements based on estimates, and we never really know until the new value hits the grand list, which usually takes about 18 months, what the actual is going to be versus the estimate. By waiting, we actually have the actuals, and we always told them it would be the 10/1/2020 grand list when this would start for the July 1, 2021 tax bill, and they agreed to that. So now's the time, if you're so inclined, to approve this, so Francine can take the approved numbers and enter them into the grand list, which she has to sign by the end of the month. That's why we're here tonight, to go back and show you the actuals versus the estimate. Because of that one deviation, we feel that it's important for the board to reapprove it or reaffirm the commitment to it. But overall, I think not only did they live up to their side of the bargain, they exceeded the estimates of net new taxes. And you can see the new growth amount here. It's fairly substantial, and that's just the real estate and personal property tax. And then there's the big value to the town, I think, is probably in the jobs that they were able to retain and grow here because of this new facility, this new equipment, and a new location. If all that had gone to Utah, Simsbury would have lost jobs instead of gaining jobs. And that was the basis of your approval in the first place. So it's there's a lot of numbers here, and I think I'll stop and see if anyone has any questions.
First of all, thank you all for your work over the past 2 years on getting us to this place. And for this comparison, which I think is helpful, what questions do other board members have right now?
I have a couple questions. Oh, you want to go, Chris?
No, Wendy, maybe you'll answer my question for me.
So very happy that we have Ensign Bickford in town. And I just wanted to clarify, I wasn't here in May 2019. So when this was crafted, right, the abatement, it was based on the projected value increase in their enhancements. And the 10-year total was 374, right, at that time. And then the taxes that we would get was the 240. But given that, so if this had been enacted at that point in time, that's what the abatement amount would have been, right?
Well, no, those were the estimates, and the abatement amount really came a result of a formula that would have been applied under the agreement. So it would have been the amounts you see here, because we're abating the percent increase over 10 years. In the first 2 years, it's 100%, and 100% abatement of the higher number still would have been, what's depicted here. So the triggering item on that was the percent abatement within the agreement. And the offsetting, the basis of the bargain was we'll abate the real estate and we'll collect full tax on the personal property. And at some point, those two lines will cross because the real estate grows in value over time. The personal property reduces in value over time. And that's what you see here in the charts. And the net new real estate tax and the net the personal property tax side by side, a good way to look at it. As the real estate tax grows, the personal property tax shrinks, but the new real estate tax that comes online as the abatement shrinks offsets the reduction in personal property for a net increase over 10 years of $307,999 as opposed to $240,922.
Okay.
If I could just piggyback on your comment. Sorry, Wendy, so we approved the percentages.
Yes.
Wendy, just from a clarification standpoint. Right. And next year, that 65,908 is an estimate. We don't know what it is, right? And we won't know what the 30/31 6347 is until it happens. So that's why in these agreements we approve the percentages, and then however the taxes are assessed is how it falls.
Okay. Right. The question I had was the difference between the 2019 estimate and the 2021 estimate is that they did more than they expected to do.
Yes.
That was what I was getting at, that because it's a percentage, we're giving a larger abatement because they overdid, right?
Yes, they added more value to the real estate than they originally estimated.
Okay. And that was my point, that if it was a flat rate at May 2019, then we would have not paid, we wouldn't have given more, but because it was based on, the percentage and the improvements that they did were greater than we expected, they're getting a bigger abatement.
That's correct.
Okay. That's what I wanted to clarify. I was confused at first when I read this.
Yeah, it's pretty confusing. There's a lot of numbers here. We tried to distill it down into the essential numbers to compare the 2019 to the 2021, but it's kind of hard to follow.
And Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason we do the percentage is because if we had given a flat amount and they had come in at less of an investment, we're trapped at the agreed upon abatement. Whereas the percentage, if they failed to meet the mark, we don't abate as much taxes because they didn't live up to their end of the bargain. So it kind of rises and falls both ways, right?
That's right. And of course, we always want to incentivize the property owner to invest more, not less. And that's really what happened here. And we hope that will continue. And they're not done. I mean, this is, they're still adding assets on both the real estate and the personal property side. And we expect another growth year this year. And this, the more it grows, the more tax the town gets, and over the 10 years. And after the 10 years, of course, you got it at full value.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, Francine and Bob, but the machinery they're putting in there counts as the personal property, and that stuff has pretty high value, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is big, high-tech manufacturing stuff. And you're only seeing a fraction of the total increase in personal property, because this is only the taxable portion of it. The tax exempt portion of it doesn't play in here because it's tax exempt, but there's a lot being added there that will enhance the value of the facility well into the future. And it's like this big time manufacturing stuff. Once it is in place, they don't want to move it. So the jobs stay with the equipment, so to speak.
Wendy, do you have any other questions? Okay, Chris.
Hi. Hey, Bob.
Hi.
Maybe for Maria, this is completely anecdotal. I think it would just be, maybe a cap on the win that, a lot of the win that we see here might be to talk with EB at some point and find out, of those 110, 120 some odd jobs that have been created, organic new jobs. Hopefully few of them were lateral moves. They were true new folks into town, so to speak. Might be to find out how many of those people became town residents. That'd be a true win in my eyes, and that's just anecdotal. Something we can find out conversationally at some point in the future. But Bob, maybe just help me in my small mind here. I don't want to relitigate why we did this, because I was in support of it then, large supporter, and I'm in support of it now. Some folks might want to get clarity around why this is coming back and being shown to us, because I respect and I appreciate the fact that it's you folks just being extra cautious potentially and showing us what occurred and what has occurred, not necessarily something that may have had to come before us. But could you speak to, had these numbers been presented the way they are now, and the fortunes be what they may, might any of these numbers been paused for a different decision or a different ultimate where we ultimately may have landed? Could anybody possibly say that this information might have changed our thought process or our feelings, or this is all additive and this is all in line with what our expectations were, and is even better? Could you add some color there?
Yeah, I think so, because back in 2019, the bargain was the tax abatement percentages to them and the net new tax to the town. So those two columns were where the discussion landed. And, anyone who was part of that, please elaborate on that. But that was the basis of the bargain. We'll give you the percentage tax abatement only on the real estate. In exchange for that, we want to guarantee a minimum new tax income from this project. That's why I'm focused on that column that you see, the net new real and personal property tax, because essentially the idea was for $250,000 of additional tax revenue over 10 years, the town was willing to do the graduated increase on the incremental new real estate enhancement, not the real estate assessment of the whole campus, just the new stuff, taking the old abandoned building and turning it into a new leased manufacturing center. And the idea was if all this goes to Utah, the town doesn't get or keep the jobs and the vacant building stays a vacant building. If the town does do this incentive, just the opposite occurs. The old building gets put back in service, the equipment goes in, the jobs stay or grow. And, the town was willing to make the bet that the incremental taxes would more than exceed the abated taxes on the real estate. And that's what happened. Now we were ready to do this back in the spring, but it was just such a moving target as to what the values were. We decided to say, well, they got to file their income and expense report, their personal property declaration November 1st. Let's just wait and get that and see what the actual numbers are. And then we can go back to the Board of Selectmen with the real data and see how it compares to the projected data. Because what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to have it come in well below what you had agreed to. So we did that, and Francine did yeoman's work in sorting through all this and kind of segregating out that one piece of real estate within the larger pieces of real estate and affixing a real estate value to that. So I think it's fair to say that you bargained for $240,000 over 10 years in exchange for a abatement on the incremental real estate, and what you're actually getting is, call it $308,000 over the same 10-year period for the same abatement schedule as a percentage. So I think my view is that the town is getting a little more than they bargained for when you first looked at this 2 years ago. And I think importantly, you're making good on a promise to a business that's been in town since the mid 1800s.
And Bob, just to be clear, is it true that this agreement could have been signed before we had all of this real-time data?
Yeah. Because
we could have had, because we're agreeing to the percentages. So when we approved this and sent you and Maria to negotiate, you could have come back 3 months later with a negotiated agreement. And then we could be sitting here tonight with an update.
That's
and this
true.
would it be. So, and again, I'm not trying to talk people in or out of it, but again, this is not necessarily normal that we get to actually see what the numbers are and still finalize it. Normally we agree to the percentages and then it kind of goes off into the ether. Right?
Yeah. And you also agreed to that schedule of the 10-year net tax enhancement.
Right.
But for that first year, you're above the minimum. It's all expressed as minimum net new tax. But for that first year, you're above all the minimums for the other 9 years. And that first year caused me to say, well, we're not hitting the mark in that first year. That's what the board approved. Let's send it back to the board and have them look at the whole thing and just reapprove it. So there's no question as to whether or not we missed the mark in that first year in terms of the board approval.
Right. But you can look at it, I guess, is either glass half full or glass half empty, right? The town gave up, so to speak, $160,000 in potential revenue, or had we not done this, the town is now better by $70,000 in tax revenue that in addition to the 240, so the 308 that we would have seen had this investment not been made.
Yeah, and that's always the but for argument on these things. But for the tax abatement, you don't get the enhancement anyway.
Yep. It's all again, and we can all invoke philosophies, et cetera, whether tax abatements are a good idea. But your point of emphasis that you keep saying is right, is that we agreed to this. This is basically a finalization of the schedule, right?
Yeah, and I think you got two very successful tax abatements in recent memory. You've got the Ensign House, which is, it's it's not a Walgreens. it's the old historic house is still there and functioning and been in.
Yeah, Bob. I was just gonna. I just was gonna say that I've been a part of only 2 tax abatements, and I'm not sure how many Sean and Mike have been a part of, but I don't think that it's certainly. Again, Sean mentioned it. Tax abatements can be debated. Tax abatements can be debated about their value, but it seems like that's in the grand scheme of what's gone wrong, what goes wrong with tax abatements, in much more other municipal settings at a grander scale with abuse and whatnot. And it'd be hard pressed for somebody to look at those 2 products and say those 2 projects and not visually see the possibilities and progress and results from them. So I think that speaks well for us.
Yeah, we're not going to end up with 1 million square footage of Amazon space when they move on to the next community, right?
Right.
Or what happened? What happened with Pfizer down in the lower part of the state, or otherwise.
No, these were both very projects for the town to have done.
What's the other one we did, Mike? We did the
old Palmer Hall.
We did those, and then we also did the Ojekian.
Ojekian, and we did Holloway's many years ago.
Yep.
And Apollos.
Yeah, and the Apollos. Yeah, so the facelift at that property. I think we've been pretty sparing with them over at least the decade I've been here.
Yeah, we've been very conservative, and in every single case, they've bettered the town. So we've done well, and this is a good demonstration why you do the percentage. And we still haven't taken into account Chris's point about the, how do I want to describe it, the people that moved into town, which I know there are some. I have heard anecdotally about that. So it's a good thing.
Are there other questions for Bob or Maria or staff? Okay, I'll introduce the motion. Is there a motion effective January 11th, 2021 to approve the tax abatement agreement for 632, 640 Hot Meadow Street and authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to execute the agreement, subject to final review and approval of the agreement by the town attorney? And also that section 2.2 of the agreement be updated to reflect changes proposed in the net new tax schedule.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
I heard a Mike second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for your work on this, guys. Not light stuff.
Our pleasure.
Moving on to appointments and resignations. Is there a motion effective January 11th, 2021 to appoint Susan or to move Susan J. Krinsky from a regular member of the Aging and Disability Commission to an alternate member with a term expiring on January 1, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
But here is a second. I froze up for a second.
Yep.
Jackie.
Second.
Jackie
Okay.
and I
Thanks,
tied.
Jackie.
Give it to Jackie.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Is there a motion effective January 11th, 2021 to move Cheryl Cook from an alternate member of the Aging and Disability Commission to a regular member with a term expiring January 1, 2023?
I don't know about that Cook. She's
We should check into that.
I'll second that.
Okay. All
Isn't there a
in
cap
favor?
on how many things she can be a part of?
Seriously.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And is there a motion effective January 11th, 2021 to reappoint Charles Houlihan as a regular member of Board of Ethics with a term expiring January 1, 2025?
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And finally, is there a motion retroactive to December 22, 2020 to accept the resignation of Elizabeth Burt as a regular member of the Library Board of Trustees?
Move that with our thanks.
Second.
Mike seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The minutes from our meeting on December 14th, 2020, did anyone see anything that they would want to see changed? Okay, and they look good. Do we have any selectmen liaison or subcommittee reports? No? Anything under communications? We had several memos under the communications section. Were there any questions or anything anyone wanted to raise there? Just before we adjourn, I just wanted to see if folks would appreciate a 5-minute break before we bring in the police commission for their presentation.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please.
So what we'll do after we adjourn is we can just turn off our cameras for 5 minutes, and then why don't we come back at 7:45? So it'll give us about 8 minutes, if that works. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we'll see you soon.
Thanks.